Hello, everyone. I'm Yash Singhal, the co-founder of CaseDocker, and today we are having Mr. Eduard Alia with us. He is a fractional GC and has immense experience in the finance and technology domain with experience across various fintech companies. Hi, Edward. How are you?
Yash, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm very good, thank you.
Thanks again, Edward. Today
Please call
we
me
would be
Ed. It's okay.
Ed, before we dive right in, would you want to tell the guests a bit about your experience and your views on the finance and tech domain and a bit about yourself in general?
Yeah, sure. Always delighted to ask any lawyer to speak about themselves. That's their favorite thing, and so is mine. So I'm Ed. I'm originally Albanian. I started my legal career in London as a student, and then did a small stint in New York and a small stint in Brussels, and been working in a very international setting really for the past 15, 16 years since I've been a graduate. A little bit with American firms, a little bit with British companies. It's been a very international roller coaster. That's a defining characteristic of my career to date. The other thing that's been fairly unique, I would say. It's my experience has been in-house mostly. I It's a conscious decision that I actually made after graduating. I had a taster of the City of London. I had a taster of the Wall Street white shoe firm and etc. And then I moved in house for a graduate internship. That was a position for a year with Intel Corporation. At the time, it was one of the top 10 companies in the world. And then the classical penny dropped. I really liked it there. And made a conscious decision to stay in house. So yeah, fairly international, fairly in house. That's those two rather unique characteristics of my career to date.
Really interesting to hear about that, Ed, especially how your trajectory went into the in-house route and how you've chose to stuck along there. So, talking about your experience in particular, right? How did you get into the fintech domain, and what surprised you the most about your journey?
Oh, that's also another interesting thing. So as I said, I started at Intel doing techie contracts. Although I was at the time, I had really, you could say, a Southern European expression, milky lips. I was, or the British version is wet around the ears. Very young, but I started doing techie contracts and did that for later for a gaming company. And then as I formally trained as a solicitor in the UK with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, I was doing lots of techie contracts there. But then there I met with this financial regulation element and started enjoying it, even though it sounds painful. But it's an area that I enjoyed, and then I started working more on it, and gradually my technology experience and my financial experience converged, and I have become a fintech lawyer somehow.
Very interesting. And like, it's actually interesting how technology and finance all joined together for you in the end to shape your journey and put you where you are today, right? So tell me, this is a question that I've often heard from people who are just starting in the field, right? What are some things that matter to you today that law school did not teach you? What are some things that you kind of learn along the way as you grow into your experience that probably lawyers today, people who are studying today, would want to learn but would never learn in law school?
That's a very good question, actually. And it's for sure would have been good to learn, about payments or about crypto in law school.
Mhm.
Those two fields did not exist when I was going to law school, and it's to me it feels like it was yesterday that I was going to law school, but it's actually 20 years this past September. It's 20 years since since I entered the law school doors. Um, but for sure, law school was very two things. I'll limit it to two things. First of all, law school taught us a lot of things, a lot of law
Mhm.
that is not really relevant in real life.
Mhm.
So, for instance, I was focusing quite a lot, with human rights, with public international law. Well, these areas, they really certainly do matter, but it is a little disproportionate. There's so few jobs in the reality of
Mhm.
things, whereas the vast majority of lawyers, they go on to specialize in property law, in immigration, criminal law, commercial law, wills, etc. That's what you do in real life. There are so few human rights lawyers, so few public international lawyers,
Mhm.
and so that was one element of it. That you learn a lot of law that actually is not hugely relevant in real life. Two, I wish I had learned some more practical elements. So, for instance,
Mhm.
drafting. That was not something that British law school teaches to you. I found that a bit, as I did my master's at NYU, I found that there, actually, American law schools are a little better at training students to write memos and to do a bit more drafting, that, the kind of drafting that judges or actual partners in law firms will expect. Um, in British law school, most certainly not. We just learn the theoretical concepts of contracts law, but never the actual drafting, how to go on about writing a contract. You just did not learn anything like that. And I wish law school had taught us a bit more about that.
No, totally makes sense. And like, there's always that age-long debate that like, does university actually teach you the relevant skills? Does it not? And again, I would personally think that it does to an extent, but there are a lot of things lacking, as you said. So it's great to hear more perspective on the topic and skills that people might actually use today that they should learn that law school might not teach them. So, um, coming to your experience in the fintech and legal domain, right? What are some common conceptions that people have outside of legal about the work in the fintech domain that is related to legal? So, as your experience, especially in the fintech domain, your whole life, right? What are some things that people wouldn't expect there to be from a legal perspective?
So, a lot of my day-to-day tasks in fintech are this one, it's a 3 point, it's a 3 bullet
Mhm.
points: regulations, regulatory, and regulators. It's these three. When it's You're writing a contract, but it's for where you have in the back of your mind, you have the regulator and you have the upcoming regulations, and you're always trying to navigate any regulatory issues through a something that doesn't seem related actually at all. You might be hiring someone to do, let's say your fintech is hiring a company to do ID verification. Well, that's got nothing to do with, it's not finance per se, but part of your anti-money laundering requirements, the regulations, and you got to show to the regulator, and you got to keep in mind regulatory changes. So all these three R's that I keep mentioning, it's the same word that's just diverged into a few different endings. But it's more about that than it is about the actual contract itself.
Mhm.
So it's something that people misconceive when I've even met founders that do not quite understand the role of regulations, of a legal department, because they see it as a little bit commercial, and a little bit, or if anything, something that should be dovetailed into the compliance department. They're not quite the same. It's not risk. It's not. It's something of its own, but it's something that really does feed into, you know, helps boost the commercial side by doing contracts, and
Mhm.
helps boost the compliance element. And it's a misconception of it's very often a misconception, and it's at the peril of the person who has this misconception. Some founders, they understand legal a lot better than others, some less.
Very true. And it's actually really interesting when you talk about regulations because, like, I have also personally seen that people look more into the technology of things while often not caring about the actual regulations and the kind of regulatory impact that it can have on them. And then once that actually comes and hits them with like that big fine or that lawsuit, that is when companies actually find out how important these regulatory matters can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's too late. If that has happened, then that's too late really to then bang on the importance. It's really important for the lawyers themselves to influence and persuade for success. And that ensures the success of the legal team, legal unit, but it ensures the success of the company itself as well.
Definitely, very true. So, moving on, right? In payments and fintech, what are the legal team's day-to-day priorities? So beyond regulation and beyond the regulatory work, what are other things that you and your team do on a day-to-day basis? Maybe like compliances, contracts, third-party risks. What are some things that your team focuses on?
Yeah, so it's the bread and butter of any legal department, really. So
Hmm.
once you've taken away the regulatory element, which is not something that, as I said, that people expect. Once you take that away, it's really very similar to every other, whether that's a manufacturing company, whether it is a charity, whether it is a university. We're talking corporate governance, so board meetings, resolutions, etc., all the boring corporate stuff. Move it away. Commercial contracts are second, and that's really the bread and butter of any business. Whether that is supplier, whether that is the services or products that the company itself offers, it's that's potentially 70% of any legal department out there. And then come the other things, the ancillary, but that are all too important depending on which segment. If you're business to business, then personal data is of a secondary category. But if you're a high, consumer facing business, then personal data is one of the most important elements of your business, and so on. You have various competition laws, you have various other areas that you would be looking into. But corporate commercial, those two are become litigation, depending on where you were at. In my most recent job, litigation wasn't a thing, but then I've come across some companies that spend millions in litigation, and so it depends on where you're at.
Very true. And again, this is something that we've also seen on a day-to-day basis, that like different companies have different needs and it best suits individual industries and individual companies based on how they operate, right? So, moving off of this, right? When you actually talk about technology, legal, and regulations, as you were talking about, right? How do you see AI entering into this workspace, into the legal tech domain, into the fintech domain, and into your work as a general counsel?
So that's the $1 trillion question nowadays that everyone is asking, and for sure, AI there's a lot about the legal profession as a whole that can be
Mhm.
automated and that can be left to machines. Then there's a little room of human ingenuity that machines cannot really cover, and that's where we are still relevant, and that's why I'm still
Mhm.
talking to you instead of a chatbot. But there's a high degree of there are certain elements of legal work, for instance, terms and conditions. They can be hugely automated. They
Definitely.
and review of contracts, it can be automated very well. There are then, handling of certain inquiries, like, for instance, here in Europe, we are big on data protection.
Hmm.
So you'll very often you will get a data related request, and these can be there's something we call a DSAR. That's the most frequent, a data subject
Hmm.
access request, where someone just says, "Give me my data, give me all the data you hold about me." Or they can be data deletion requests, delete my name and email, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Um, these can be automated. They're kind of a bit they that sounds like a silly request, but imagine the
Hmm.
situation where you receive that, and then you have to go in and analyze an entire database of or several databases of what data you hold on this individual. And
Hmm.
that can take, sometimes it can take months. The law prescribes 30 days, but that can actually take months. And it involves privacy professionals, lawyers, human resources, some chief information officer department unit, and it can be a very extremely time consuming and really uh, heavy cost matter. But AI can kind of replace that, and it can make a lot of judgments. It can be conditioned. It can be, if you're able to train it so that and to if you have a clever CIO who can implement this tool well, and give it the limitations, the parameters, etc., to do this job, it can be automated. Same as there are amazing examples out there that Klarna, for instance, it's automated its entire customer services. This isn't
Mhm.
too far off. It's a very similar thing. It's a customer facing issue that cuts across various different departments, but it can be fairly automated. There are those certain other things that you cannot automate, and that's still humans are kind of important. And that the strategy of a business, that really requires and that's and there are other some unique feature things that you do once in the lifetime of a business. So fundraiser, a special event of an investment, etc. You can't automate these happen once, and as the business grows they will not take place again. So kind of harder to automate there.
Definitely very true. We have also like seen something similar at CaseDocker when we work with our clients, where the actual decision making, the strategic thinking, that is what people from the legal teams and people from the business teams excel best at. While systems like ours, other systems in the market, we all actually help you streamline the operations, as you were talking about, making those standard terms and condition documents, sending through the contracts that can be done on an automated basis, because it's again just another standard contract that you have for the company. All of those things are the automable parts, while the actual thinking, the understanding of the domain, that is what legal experts are the best for. So that is an amazing view.
If I may ask you a question, in
Mhm.
your work so far, what percentage have you found out that is automatable in the legal department?
What we have seen, again, I'm talking from more of a contracts and notices perspective right now, right?
Yeah,
Um, 60 to 70% of the work, right, is automable. Because again, when you're drafting a new legal contract, when you're drafting a new legal notice, right, all of those have very similar terminology with respect to previous contracts and notices that your company may have drafted, right?
yeah.
You follow a certain set of tools, you follow a certain set of guidelines to actually put that forward, which is again automable. And then something that we have recently added in CaseDocker in the last 1 year that clients are seeing helps automation is building up from their knowledge base, right? So based on your contracts, based on your information, further crafting contracts, that is something that is really automable. That helps streamline things, and that also helps make things faster. Because again, what you would want as a general counsel is your agreements and contracts to be in line with the previous ones. And if you have, let's say, a draft of a new agreement that you're making, made for you by AI based on your past data, your work is really reduced from 15 hours to maybe 2 to 3 hours. So that is definitely something that we've seen from an automation perspective.
Interesting. It actually matches very much what I see out there. I
Mhm.
would, if you had asked me that question, I would have said 70%, and it's
Mhm.
it's it's exactly it's very close to what you're suggesting. And I can imagine in your case it isn't the deep experience in one particular vertical. It's you're seeing this across various sectors out there, which is
Definitely.
super interesting. It is. There's one element that it's already taken place with AI, and that's without any clever automation or anything, any training of a
Mhm.
particular AI, or defined parameters, etc. Listening to the feedback loop of an automation, just simply using a tool like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity. There's
Mhm.
there's so many variations of this. you can just about replace the job of a trainee
Mhm.
lawyer. That was the job to summarize, let's say, a complex piece of a complex document, a memorandum, or if there was a policy. I used to do when I was a trainee. I used to summarize for the
Mhm.
GC. Let's say the FCA, the financial regulator here, produced a 30-page consultation paper, or I'd summarize that in a one-page format. That job does not exist anymore. You can ask one of these tools to just do it generically. Do a bit of research to find out some niche, particular couple of interrogations. You got the answer. You don't need the trainee anymore. And this is actually quite sad because it means graduates, clever graduates out there might be struggling actually really to find jobs. And you do see some statistics that are scary actually in terms of the number of jobs available to graduates out there.
That's definitely true to an extent, right? Because like with CaseDocker, one of the really important features that our clients like is that anytime they have a document intake into the system, the summaries and the analytics on the document, so basic highlight of any contract or any notice that your company receives, that is automatically done for you, right? But
Yeah.
what we see is that instead of those people being removed from the company or instead of those jobs going away, people are actually moving on to more complex work. So people are able to take on more work that way is something that we have also seen that is helping companies in general and people in general be more productive. So again, I guess it's both sides of the coins that are there.
It both sides of the coin. It goes without saying, we all thought that when mobile phones came around, that life would be so much simpler. But has it become any simpler? It hasn't. And it's something that I'm hoping will be the case with AI, and it will not steal all our jobs. We're just gonna have more complicated things to do out there. Then, so that's a positive. Yash, that's thank you for that.
No, no, definitely. So while we're on this topic, right, what are some key performance indicators that you think that teams like yours, legal teams in general, use to measure impact across their organization?
um, a classic with all lawyers is, why is it taking so long? Why? Why? Um, there's the other classic is or cliche, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
is the computer says no, or the department that says no. I've made sure of the second one wherever I've been leading a team. That does not
Mhm.
happen. That does not. You find a solution. You make things happen and work. Except if you really, really can't. If you can't break,
Mhm.
no, we're not breaking the law, but we're finding ways to make things happen within the bounds of law and regulation. But time is an important element that is really hard to
Mhm.
master, and you have to walk the tightrope of quality versus efficiency, versus time. So
Mhm.
KPIs, um, you want to make sure that the business flows smoothly, so that you're making sure that your business people are out there, they're making deals, they're working, they're concluding contracts. And so, for instance, you with NDAs, my instruction to the legal team is an NDA should not take more than 24 hours. That's a
Mhm.
critical thing. It might be that the conversation isn't important, but it just has to move. You cannot, two parties cannot wait to have a conversation because of an NDA. That just needs to
Mhm.
move. And thankfully, the automation tools nowadays, they really actually help smooth things out. And even lawyers have gotten clever. There's concepts like this one NDA, for instance. I don't know if you've come across it. Yeah, everyone's gotten a little cleverer about this. But then, secondly, contracts again, they need to move. They can't just so there you can have some KPIs because you can track time, you can track the success rate, you can make sure. Um, um, Wherever though I've only ever had in my entire career, 16 years, one contract that someone said, "I do not wish to
Mhm.
proceed with you." You can negotiate. It's all available. In that one instance, someone said, "I do not wish to negotiate with you any further," and it's only happened once, and that's more thousands of contracts that I've seen. But yeah, it's there is then otherwise very little to track in terms of KPIs. The time is an important element in my view. I would be amazed if other GCs have come up with any clever other KPIs.
Really interesting. Time is actually one that I have heard a lot, but your other perspective on getting things done that would not have been possible otherwise, working within the law while ensuring that the correct outcome is there, the desired outcome is fulfilled, that is actually a new idea that I've heard in terms of a KPI. And that's really important because, again, legal work is much beyond getting those contracts out, getting those things out, right? It's about doing work that helps your company. And that would, again, be an amazing KPI there.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, always perspective.
So yeah, tell us about a time when an automated workflow caught something that a human did not in your organization, or something that technology helped you with that was probably missed out otherwise.
All the time. But there are several instances where technologies really saves your skin,
Hmm.
really. And it's very often it's sometimes it really fails you as well. You know, it's happened more than once that I've showed up in a meeting and said, "Sorry, that document was going to be ready, but the computer crashed." But no, for instance, an easy example is your
Hmm.
notice periods. You know, procurement people sign contracts all the time. There's always a break clause. There's always a renewal period, etc., etc. You miss that window, then you've lost the company money. And
Hmm.
that's not really legal. Then nobody will take responsibility for that. It's certainly not legal's problem. It's certainly
Hmm.
not the procurement. It's certainly not the person. They're human. The person who owns the relationship. They're human. You know, they
Definitely.
have not really. You know, everyone is so busy all the time. But a contractual management tool will just say, this contract comes up for renewal in 30 days. Time to action now, and that's amazing. It helps. It saves your skin.
Definitely very true. Like those simple things often can be game changers when you're working with such tools, so that like they give you those nudges and those notifications that help push teams across.
Yeah.
So moving on, right? From a hiring point of view, what is an advice that you'd like to give teams about building a modern legal team, a legal team that works in today's legal domain?
I have a lot of tips about hiring,
Hmm.
and in particular, I'll say one thing. And also about nurturing talent. And I could talk. That could be a subject of a specialist podcast, if anybody is willing to listen to me rant. But in um, in my case, this is related to legal
Hmm.
operations, actually. So when I set up a legal function in one of my employment from scratch, and I was the first sole counsel, and then every 3 months I had to hire. So I did two hires, and then the third one, the business were pushing me. We need another lawyer. We need another two lawyers.
Hmm.
And I said, no, we don't need another two lawyers. We probably need another one. But I want that next person to be not a lawyer. I want that person to be a legal operations expert. Oh, why?
Hmm.
What are we gonna, why? Because I would like to build some parameters, technological parameters, to build efficiency so that when we hire those additional lawyers, they are entering into an efficient legal department. They're not
Hmm.
joining a department of 20 years ago where you're doing things by a PDF and signing documents on paper, but they're joining a company that has streamlined process, a workflow, you're managing contracts in a digital database repository. You're utilizing AI. You're e-signing documents, and you have knowledge repository that is accessible to everyone, and that you're not doing things, in the age of no, not dinosaurs, but the age of the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's really worked. And I've my department at Guava Pay actually got we were awarded for high innovation, for high
Hmm.
growth, for an excellent legal ops unit. We did win an award. Actually, we had quite a few stories to tell on this front.
No, no, that makes a lot of sense because again, like in today's day, I think it's the leaner teams that matter the most. The teams who get the work done while being efficient at it, than like bigger teams where a lot of people are there, but not a lot of them know what they're doing. So
Right?
great advice there.
Or they're
Like,
just Yeah, they're just losing it. Their efficiency is lost in tracking documents via that are being ink signed and so on. Yeah.
Definitely. So as we close out, right, one last question that I had for you today. So in the next 24 months, right, what do you expect the GC role in a fintech organization to be different because of the recent changes in technology, because of AI and all of these things in the market right now?
So I don't think it's going to be any different to fintech as opposed to any other
Hmm.
area of work, whether that's manufacturing, any scientific drug production companies. What do we call them? Pharmaceuticals, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same. It's the same challenges, I think, across the board. Um, Automation is a challenge. That means constantly keeping an eye on cost and on efficiency, and making sure that you're always doing things as cheap, as good, and timely as you can. These three ingredients. Um, then we have this pressure of AI but that feeds into this. It's not a
Hmm.
new thing. It's a pressure that has always been there. It's just it is now a bit more pronounced because of the real acceleration of AI in the last 3 to 4 years. And it seems to be across the board. It seems to be across the board that all GCs are more busier. They're more stressed. Actually, there's a huge mental pressure as well. Not just it is the demands of have just gotten somehow more complex. To prove your point, that you said earlier, the things have gotten just a lot more complex. You just suddenly are reading a lot more information. You're having to analyze, cope, digest, and do this on a day-to-day basis, and never stopping amount of information. So these two elements, I think are going to be quite. They're going to become more in the next 24 months somehow.
That makes sense. And that is actually a great point where, like, with technology comes new work, new workflows, new workloads also, and new ways to work. And I think that is a great way to get into the role. So, if
I,
you
I,
had any questions for, yeah,
I do have a question. I'm going to flip the
yeah.
same question to you. Actually, you tell me how do you see it? What are you seeing from you're offering a pretty cool technology that seems
Mhm,
to really capture all essential elements of a legal department. Actually, some
mhm,
some of these are relevant to law firms as well. So
mhm,
you've got a tool that seems to capture from e-signing to digital repository. You're not just doing contract management, but life cycle management, but you're also seem to be tracking matters as well. So it's quite a lot.
mhm,
It's quite a lot more than other competitors are offering in the space. But
mhm,
um, how do you see the role of technology? What are you aiming to offer in the next 24 months to
mhm.
GCs?
Um, what I'd say, right, like what our team is currently working on in-house and what we plan to offer down the line is that we want to streamline the experience even more, right? So with our software right now, teams are able to automate their workflows with something that we call CaseDocker playbooks, where all of their standard workflows, like a new contract creation, a new litigation matter being intaken to the system, workflows where people are actually working on a contract, working on a new notice being signed, those things our team has automated already, right? We also have been able to offer things like chatting with your document, getting analytics, summaries, and things like that, right? But what we plan to do in the next 24 months is to automate the complete creation of your data, right? So before your team actually knows that you have this contract to be created or you have this notice that you reply to, our system proactively sends you that this might be something that is helpful for you. Do you actually want to add this? This is a legal notice that you received. We have already drafted a reply for you here. Does this look good to you? Things like that. Those are the automations that we further plan on adding, right? And
Agentic. Um, would you call that agentic? Because agentic AI
definitely.
is something we hear, but agentic automation.
Definitely, that is both agentic automation and playbook based automation, where the automation that is being done is being carried out by the system, but it is carried out in a certain framework, in a certain format, so that it doesn't divulge too much. It doesn't do things that are wrong, right? Because the biggest issue with AI today is that it can often be wrong, right? It can often feed you misinformation. So when we add a new thing, we want to ensure that the information being given to a legal team is accurate.
Very interesting.
Thanks for that question again, Ed. So, thanks, Ed, again for being on the podcast, right? And thanks for your time today. And hope you have a great day ahead.
Likewise, Yash, thank you very much. The day is over in London, but I hope you have a great day in California, and hopefully we meet in person soon.
Definitely, definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Take
Bye bye.
care.